Hi, I'm Rene with New Beginnings Nutrition. So today we're going to continue talking about seasonal eating, and again we're in the spring, getting ready for the summer and kind of detoxing from the winter and eating a little bit lighter. So if you spend the winter eating pizza in sports parties and things like that, I'll give you a great alternative for just traditional pizza. So typically pizza would have white flour, a lot of meat, a lot of grease, very few vegetables, and a lot of processed cheese on the top. So today we're going to make a quinoa crust pizza filled with seasonal vegetables. So as I mentioned before, our seasonal vegetables here right now, which we're in Canada, and it's definitely been a long winter, cold winter. Our seasonal vegetables for the spring, we have mushrooms, we have some leafy greens, lots of herbs, some peppers, and I have my growing herbs here as well. So by having a quinoa crust, it's giving us all of the essential amino acids to make up a complete protein. So even if you're not adding meat or tons of meat, you're still going to get the protein that you need to stabilize your blood sugar and to keep you fuller for longer. So we're going to start by making the crust. So I've previously soaked my quinoa, and again, if you're having a hard time digesting grains, this is a great recipe because we soak the quinoa overnight in water, and that helps to make it easier digestible. So if you have a hard time digesting grains, give this a try. You might actually be pleasantly surprised that you can actually digest this recipe. So I've taken a cup of quinoa, just dry quinoa, and just poured it in a bowl overnight, topped it with water, even added a little bit of extra water at the top because it's going to soak in most of that water. Then I put it in a strainer just to kind of get rid of the extra moisture. So here I have 1 cup of quinoa, and it looks like a lot because it's absorbed a lot of water. So I'm going to put this 1 cup of soaked quinoa in a blender, and I'm using my fantastic Vitamix, but it's not necessary that you need to use a fancy blender. If you have the opportunity though, I suggest that you invest in one because it definitely makes time in the kitchen much easier. So I have my 1 cup of quinoa, and I'm going to add half a cup of water. So just if you have filtered water, even better. But here we go. So we have a half of a cup of water and 1 cup of soaked quinoa, or dry quinoa that's been soaked. So I'm just going to blend this until it becomes really just easily pourable and just creamy. So that'll just take a minute. Now, if you find that it doesn't blend very easily, you can add a little bit more water, and it'll ease the machine to mix it a little bit easier. The next thing that I'm going to add, and you could use your crust just with that mixture, so 2 ingredients, really one of them is water. Now I like to add flavor to my crust, so I'm going to add some garlic powder, onion powder. I'm even going to add a little bit of cayenne pepper just for that spicy taste. So about a teaspoon of each spice, except for the cayenne, of course, just a pinch, unless you really like it spicy. But really you could use anything. You could use oregano, parsley, you could add fresh herbs to it if you'd like. I like to add my herbs after if they're fresh. But here we go. I'm just going to blend these spices in there. Oh, I forgot my cayenne. So just a bit of cayenne, and I'll just blend them together. That easy. So now to bake this crust, I have my cookie sheet lined with parchment paper, and that's very important because the dough would definitely stick to just a pan by itself. The parchment paper helps it so that you can slide it over and turn it over very easily. So with one batch, I would typically make 2 pizza crusts. So I would use a whole pan with half of the batch, spread it out, use a different pan for the second half, and just make 2 big pizzas. Because they're not super hearty, you can make a larger pizza, add lots of fresh produce on there, and you're not going to feel stuffed because it looks like a big pizza. So here I am, just putting half of the crust, and I'm going to thin it out with a spoon until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. So it's really going to stay in the shape that you're forming when you're spreading it. And if it's thin in some places, it will stay thin in some places. So try to even it out as much as possible. There we go. So just that simple. Now I'm going to bake this at 450 for 10 minutes on one side, and then I'm going to peel it off of the parchment paper, and I'm going to bake it again at 450 on the other side for another 10 minutes. And that's going to make my crust nice and crispy. There we go. Now, of course, I have some ready for us to prepare. I have 2 made on one pan here. I've made them a little bit smaller. And typically when I make these, again, when I meal prep and I'm making lunches for the kids for the next week, I might make a bunch of these, a little bit smaller like this, and put them in the fridge, bake them, stack them up, put them in the fridge. And then at night, when we're getting ready for the next day, we can just add whatever we want on top, put it in the oven, bake it for 10 minutes to melt the cheese and the flavors, and bakes the vegetables a little bit as well. And it's ready for their lunch kits for the next day. So this is definitely a favorite in our house for lunches for school. Now, we're going to try making 2 completely different pizzas, and you can see how it can be more traditional or more earthy, I guess. So the first one I'm going to make a little bit more traditional, like you'd have a regular pizza. And I have some leftover spaghetti sauce here. So we have the tomato sauce, organic, of course. We have some organic ground beef. And I'm just going to use that as the first ingredient on my pizza. So I'll just spread it out, just like if it was a regular tomato sauce on top of a pizza. Now, on a traditional pizza, often we'll have some onions. So I have some red onions here previously chopped. And if you wanted to cook these to caramelize them and add them to your pizza, that would be a great option too. And then often we'll have some grilled tomatoes. So I took my cast iron pan a few minutes ago and I grilled some local tomatoes and some spinach, and they're ready to go on the pizza. So these are more of a traditional type of pizza. Let's say that you'd have a vegetarian pizza. You could just remove the burger, the ground beef, and then I'm going to add some of my spinach here. Ooh. my oven just popped. All right. On a traditional pizza, mushrooms is a big hit. And where did my knife go? So you could, again, mix your mushrooms with the onions if you wanted to caramelize that and add it to your pizza. But even as a traditional pizza, just raw mushrooms is very, very tasty. So here we go. And for the top, I'm gonna add some goat cheese. So just plain goat cheese instead of that heavy mozzarella that we're used to. So I'm just gonna put some dollops on top. And as it melts, it'll spread a little bit in the oven. But this cheese is such a strong tasting cheese that you don't need tons, and you're gonna enjoy the bites with just a little bit of cheese in each bite. So there we go, that's simple. There's our first pizza. So I'm going to put this one aside. We'll do the second one and then we'll put them in the oven. So the second one, I'm going to do a little bit less traditional, so more of a earthy springtime pizza, I guess. So I'm going to start by, instead of using tomato sauce, I'm just going to put some avocado on top of the pizza. So I'm just going to scoop it out of its peel and just mush it on top of the quinoa crust. So it kind of gives it a little bit more of that moisture that we're looking for from the pizza sauce. Here we go. So I want to put it a little bit everywhere. And you know, here we go, we're getting some good fats in here. It's so important to not forget the fat or try to remove it out of your diet, because you could very well end up with some health problems or deficiencies by cutting out fat or going on a low-fat diet. So here we go, we got good healthy fats, tons of good nutrients here, just in slivers, or you could dice them, whatever you choose. I really like the taste of fresh peppers when they're raw. It gives it that clean taste and just that freshness. If you prefer to have them cooked, by all means, go ahead and stir fry them. Or you could always do some roasted peppers to bring out the different sweetness, different flavors. There we go. And I'm going to add some red onions as well. Love red onions. I put that stuff on everything. And some fresh mushrooms, as we did on the other one. Now, as you can see, if you prepare these pizza crusts over the weekend, this can be a quick, easy go-to dinner for people on the go. So you come home, you get it done, and it really would take, 10-15 minutes, as long as your crusts are already done. And as you saw, the crusts don't take very long to make anyways. So after that, I'm going to add some Kalamata olives. This gives it such a nice, strong flavor. So you don't need very much, because it is so potent in flavor. And the last one that I would put on there, that's definitely not traditional, is just some mixed herbs. So as I said, this is seasonal for us right now, so why not add it on our pizza? And it sounds funny to just put some fresh herbs on a pizza and then put it in the oven, but you'd be surprised how tasty it is, especially with the avocado and the other vegetables. So I have that, and I'm also going to add some fresh basil from my lovely plant. And believe me, I am not a professional gardener. I actually failed at growing lettuce last year. But I had this as a great gift, and somehow it survived. So I use them as much as I can, as often as I can, and as many recipes as I can, because they're available here for me to use. So there we go. Again, we love our cheese. We're gonna add that goat cheese. So again, just dollops on top, and it will spread a little bit as you put it in the oven. Okay, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I think I've used everything that I wanted to put on my not so traditional pizza. Oh. And as you can see, this crust is fairly sturdy. I can pick it up. I don't have to grab it with a spatula. It's quite strong. Let's see if I can pick this up. So here's our two pizzas. Traditional, not so traditional, but just as tasty. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the oven for, because the crust is still warm, I've just made it. I really just need to warm the vegetables and melt the cheese. So I would typically put it in the oven. I could even broil it for a few minutes, or I'll put it in the oven for 350, 10 minutes, and my pizza will be ready. If you had it in the fridge, your crust in the fridge, and even the crust was cold, I would definitely not broil it. I would put it for 350, 400 for a good 10 minutes. So just keep an eye on it. You don't want your fresh herbs to burn either. So definitely keep an eye on it. And I hope you get a chance to try this pizza recipe and have a little bit of a lighter dinner